Good morning, everyone. I'm Ekampreet Kaur. Welcome to today's special program on anti-Semitism in Pakistan, a topic that demands serious attention and thoughtful dialogue. This event is proudly hosted in collaboration with Shub and The Honest Critique. Before we begin, a quick note for the audience. Throughout the session, feel free to type your questions in the chat box. Towards the end of the presentation, I will select a few and post them to our speaker. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Ratnadeep Chakraborty. Ratnadeep is currently pursuing his PhD at Tel Aviv University, where his research focuses on anti Semitism within jihadist groups. He is also an Irwin Cotler Fellow at the university and the author of the book, The Evolution of Israel's National Doctrine, a journey from Ben Gurion to Netanyahu. Over to you, Ratnadeep. You have around 30 to 35 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll open the floor for the questions.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you so much to the entire team at Shub for hosting this important conference. The title of my presentation today is Antisemitism in Pakistan Seeds of Hate Beyond Borders. And it is based upon research into the political, educational, and digital infrastructures that have enabled antisemitism to take root and flourish in Pakistan. Unlike European context, where antisemitism is often tied to a tragic and visible history of Jewish communities, Pakistan is a nation where antisemitism exists without Jews. The term antisemitism without Jews was popularized by Robert Wistrich, which perfectly described this phenomenon. Pakistan had a small but historically significant Jewish community, numbering fewer than 3,000 at independence. However, after the formation State of Israel in 1947, due to the increasing hostilities, this number has dwindled down to fewer than 200, most of which lives in secrecy fearing persecution. The numerical near absence of Jews paradoxically enabled the proliferation of anti-Semitic myths. With no real Jewish community left to challenge the stereotypes, myths go unchecked, conspiracies become facts, and hate speech becomes normalized. Now, these narratives don't exist in isolation. They are amplified through mosques, political discourses, textbooks, and social media. Now, to understand the anti Semitism in Pakistan, we must trace its root back to pre independence era and early ideological shaping of Pakistan's national identity. The Muslim League, a political party formed during India's struggle for independence with the ambition of a separate state for Muslims during its 1938 session in Patna, adopted resolutions condemning British support for Zionism and drawing parallels between British colonialism and Jewish influence, which was framed as a global conspiracy against Muslims. In his presidential address, Muhammad Ali Jinnah declared, I know how deeply Muslims have stirred over the issues of Palestine. I know Muslims will not shrink from any sacrifice if required to help the Arabs who are engaged in the fight for their national freedom. This narrative of political solidarity, positioning Jews as the orchestras of oppression and subjugation, became embedded in Pakistan's ideological framework post independence. While Jinnah, the founder father of Pakistan, opposed the partition of Palestine and supported the Arab cause, his rhetoric largely refrained from directly targeting Jews. However, his opposition to Zionism resonated with the newly formed state of Pakistan, where political solidarity with Arab nations became a cornerstone of his foreign policy. Following independence in 1947, leaders like Liaquat Ali Khan maintained a delicate balance between countering Western aid and aligning with pan-Islamic causes. Now, this balance resulted in Pakistan's current opposition to Israel and adoption of Arab Islamic narratives that often conflated anti Zionism with anti Semitism, as visible in the writings of Maududi and the narrative of his party, the Jamaat Islami. Maududi is the founder of Jamaat Islami, which remains a deeply entrenched and influential political and social force. The party serves as both a political entity and a religious movement advocating for the establishment of an Islamic state governed by Sharia. Maududi is also considered to be an inspirational force behind the Muslim Brotherhood. Maududi have characterized Jews as perpetual antagonists of Islam, asserting that they have been the most prominent agents of Satan for 1400 years. He further accused Jews of harboring jealousy towards Prophet Muhammad, suggesting they sought to undermine Islam because prophethood was no longer exclusive to the community. Maududi have framed the Palestinian issue not just as an Arab concern, but as a global Muslim struggle against an existential Jewish threat. He explicitly warned that treating Palestine as a regional Arab issue, calling instead for the mobilization of the entire Muslim world against the Jews, whom he portrays as orchestrating a gigantic international Zionist conspiracy with the backing from global powers. Jamaat's current rhetoric very much aligns with Maududi's claims about the Jewish conspiracies to dominate global system and undermine the Islamic values, taking a page from the protocols of the Elders of Zion. Figures like Zakir Naik, an Islamic scholar, Ishrar Ahmed, have used their platforms also to directly propagate these narratives. Their programs often draw a large audience, amplifying the reach to such conspiracies. For instance, Zakir Naik has repeatedly referred to the protocols in his sermons, claiming that it reveals the true intentions of the global Jewish leadership. There have been television shows and online platforms in Pakistan which have also played a significant role in propagating the protocols. In Pakistan, anti-Semitic narrative frequently surface in YouTube videos, television sermons, often tied to conspiracy theories blaming Jews for world events. Now we all know the protocols of the Elders of Zion have come from the Tsarist Russia, which puts across one of the most the stereotyping of Jews possible. And this has found a fertile ground in Pakistan, where the book was translated into Urdu and was being sold in mosques and was available for public discourse. This foundational ideology laid groundwork for Pakistan's consistent opposition to Israel, its alignment with jihadist causes, and the normalization of anti Semitic thinking in state and society alike. Let's now turn to Pakistan's political establishment at the highest levels of its legislative and party structure, how it has moved beyond rhetoric to formal institutional endorsement of anti Semitic positions and pro Hamas militancy. In 2024, the Pakistan Senate introduced a bill that criminalizes any activity promoting Zionism. This was proposed by Senator Afnanullah Khan of the ruling PMLN, and it sought to imprison individuals for up to 3 years for engaging in or supporting what was broadly defined as Zionist propaganda. Khan believed and justified the bill by invoking the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, claiming that Zionist books call for killing dissenters, a direct echo of the claims found in the forged anti-Semitic tract, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This wasn't an isolated act of populist grandstanding. It was a part of a wider pattern of mainstream political validation for violent anti-Semitism and Islamist extremism. Just days after the October 7, the Hamas massacre, Senator Murshid Hussain Saeed, a senior politician with decades of influence, rose in parliament to defend Hamas's action, presenting them as justified resistance. He even acknowledged that Pakistan has extended monetary support to Hamas. His statement essentially rebranded terrorism as heroism and cloaked anti-Semitism in the language of national solidarity. At the same time, former Senator Mushtaq Ahmed Khan, a leader of the Jamaat-e-Islami, Pakistan's largest Islamist party, publicly glorified the October 7 attacks. In his words, the task that the regular armies of the 57 Muslim countries could not accomplish, a few mujahideens of Hamas have done. Hamas has forced Israel to kneel. I salute them, they are heroes. Such open glorification of mass murder, uttered by someone holding a legislative authority, reflects how deeply anti-Semitic violence have been valorized. Senator Maulana Abdul Ghaffur Hadari of the JUIF, a powerful Deobandi political party, submitted a formal resolution in the Pakistani Senate calling October 7 massacre a historic operation. This was not just symbolic. It was codified legislative endorsement of Hamas's most lethal attack on Jews since the Holocaust. But political support wasn't just confined to the parliament. In June 2024, Jamaat-e-Islami organized a massive Gaza Million March in Karachi. Their Hafiz Rahman, the party's chief, called for Pakistan to officially recognize Hamas as a legitimate government. He declared, "The rulers and the armed forces of Pakistan must play their role. The legal status of Hamas must be recognized." Now let's look at the protocols of the Elders of Zion in Pakistani politics. Anti-Semitic discourse in Pakistan often merges with theological bigotry with conspiracy theory using historical myth to discredit political opponents. A central case is the Operation Goldsmith, a widely circulated conspiracy theory that claims that Imran Khan is a Jewish proxy, a puppet orchestrated by foreign powers to destabilize Pakistan from within. This theory hinges on Imran Khan's former marriage to Jamila Goldsmith. This theory has also been actively promoted by figures such as Hina Parvez Butt, a member of the Pakistan's Punjab Provincial Assembly from the ruling PMLN. She has repeatedly posted this on social media, saying that the Jewish lobby has launched Operation Goldsmith to push Pakistan into chaos. This theory claims that Imran Khan, the former prime minister, was selected by the global Zionist elite and that his political rise was engineered through media manipulation and his premiership was used to weaken the country's economy and military. Now, this claim that Imran Khan is somehow a Jewish proxy is not just restricted to one or two politicians. Maryam Nawaz, the current chief minister of Pakistan Punjab province, in her campaign has stated that her son is Nawaz Sharif's grandson, not Goldsmith, a dig at Khan's children and their Jewish ancestry. Defense Minister Khwaja Asif has publicly referred to Khan as an Israeli asset. Such vile content was liked and shared thousands of times, often appearing alongside political hashtag and anti-Israel slogans. The protocols and mindset, the belief that Jews secretly controlled global events has become deeply rooted in Pakistan's political narrative. It is used to not only demonize external actors like Israel or the West, but also delegitimize internal dissenters, especially those with perceived foreign or liberal connections. Now, if we look at the Hamas leadership engagement in Pakistan, in the wake of Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, which saw the murder of over 1,000 civilians, Pakistan became an active stage for Hamas propaganda and international outreach. On October 14, 2023, Hamas leader Khalid Mashal addressed a crowd in Peshawar at the Mufti Mahmood conference, declaring that Israeli Jews will be expelled from Palestine. Hamas will work for Sharia rule not just in Palestine but all over the world. His message was endorsed by Maulana Rahman, a politician from the JUIF, and a cleric who vowed, if the Islamic world permits, we are already ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Mujahideen. Now let's look at the Hamas leadership engagement in Pakistan. In the wake of Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, which saw the murder of over 1,000 civilians, Pakistan became an active stage for Hamas's propaganda and international outreach. On October 14, 2023, Hamas leader Khalid Mashal addressed a crowd in Peshawar at the Mufti Mahmood conference and declared Israeli Jews will be expelled from Palestine. Hamas will work for Sharia rule not just in Palestine but all over the world. His message was endorsed by Maulana Rahman, a politician from the JUIF and a cleric who vowed that if the Islamic world permits, we are ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Mujahideen. In December 2023, another Hamas leader, very prominent, Ismail Hania, spoke at a conference in Islamabad, a coalition of religious groups. He demanded military intervention from Pakistan and stated that the Jews are the greatest enemy of Muslims in the world, and he wanted the Pakistan army to intervene and stop the war between Israel and Hamas. The alliance became more dangerous when Hamas's top envoy to Iran was the chief guest at the Kashmir Solidarity and Alaska Flood Conference in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Present at the event were also leaders from Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, both globally designated terrorist group responsible for 2008 Mumbai attacks, the 2001 Indian Parliament attack, and recently, if we look at the history, the Uri, the Pulwama, and now the attack in Pahalgam. The large trucks blaring anti-Semitic chants such as Khyber Khyber O Jews, a reference to the 7th century battle, paraded the streets. Banner praised the Hamas's October 7 attacks and posters celebrated Yahya Sinwar as a hero was seen. These events were live streamed on social media. Some of the videos were publicly shared on social media, promoted in Pakistani press, and viewed by a large audience in the Pakistani diaspora. Let's now look at the institutionalization that happens through education. Anti-Semitism in Pakistan is just not confined to political speeches or fringe ideology. It is institutionalized at the earliest level of education. The public school curriculum, particularly in subjects like Islamiyat and social studies, embeds religious and ethnic hatred directly into the minds of the millions of students. Take for example, the single national curriculum introduced by Imran Khan government in 2020, which was aimed at unifying Pakistan's fractured educational system, paradoxically introduced uniform bigotry. Now let's take a few examples from the SNC textbooks. Let's take the grade 7 Islamic textbook, for instance, which wants to talk about the expulsion of the Banu Nazir tribe. And while saying that, it says the Jewish tribe was notorious for their hostility and was arrogant. It was an ethnic cleansing of their impure existence from Medina, and it uses the most dehumanizing language which echoes the Nazi vocabulary. Now let's take a few more examples. These examples are taken from the 2015 report that was done by the USCIRF, and it shows in a grade 5 Islamic studies textbook, in Balochistan, the governor of Rome remained neutral as he knew the deceitfulness of the Jews. Grade 6 Urdu in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, if you look. In 1949, the Jews tried to set fire to the occupied Alaska Mosque. Grade 7 Social Studies textbooks. Jews occupied a large area. Israel exterminated all Muslims and those who remained were exiled. The textbooks are widely distributed, often the only source of knowledge for the rural and working class students. For children in madrasas, the rhetoric is even more violent and conspirational, often calling for open jihad because they don't use the state sanctioned textbooks. Importantly, if you also see Hinduphobia is also intertwined with anti Semitism because anything that goes wrong in Pakistan, if you look at the media, the Hindus and the Jews are always blamed for it. This somewhat creates a binary worldview where Jews and Hindus are just eternal enemies of Islam, a view passed down to generations. The digitization of hate has also transformed Pakistan into a viral, algorithm driven phenomenon. Social media is just not a reflection of offline hate, it amplifies, normalizes, and globalizes it. Prominent figures use platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and Facebook to post anti Semitic content with impunity. Shirin Mazari, a former human rights minister, tweeted that Israeli actions in Gaza were akin to Hitler's genocide of Jews, and that critiques of such comparison were merely proof of Jewish media control. When Foreign Minister Shah Mahmoud Qureshi told CNN that Israel was losing the media war despite its connection, it was interpreted globally as, of course, anti Semitic because it was taking a page out of the Elders of the Zion. But in Pakistan, the statement was celebrated, trending on Twitter, and was justified, saying that he is just stating mere facts. Then there's Veena Malik, a television celebrity with over 1 million followers, who tweeted a falsely attributed quote of Hitler, saying, "I would have killed all the Jews of the world, but I kept some alive to show why I killed them." She later tweeted when there were attacks on Israel, saying the Iron Dome is doomed, Hamas with a victory sign, and multiple Quranic verses endorsing jihad after October 7. To just probably add one more part of it is that thousands of bot accounts, which are likely linked to the Inter-Services Public Relations, the military's media wing, have retweeted, amplified, and normalized these messages. These accounts often use these nationalist handles to avoid bans. Now, how does this online hate, or the hate that has been amplified by the books or the society or the state, is translated into offline violence? Now, despite Pakistan's tiny Jewish population, anti-Semitic hate has translated into systemic violence and real-world attacks. I'll give you a few examples. The Magen Shalom synagogue in Karachi, which was built in 1893, was vandalized repeatedly and ultimately demolished in the 1980s. This was not accidental, this was a part of systemic erasure of the Jewish history in Pakistan. Daniel Pearl, the Wall Street reporter, a Jewish American, was kidnapped and beheaded in Karachi. His murderers claimed that he was a Mossad agent, justifying the execution through religious and political anti-Semitism. The 26/11 Mumbai attack, for example, which was done by the Lashkar-e-Toiba, Pakistan-based groups, deliberately targeted the Habat house, killing 6 hostages, including the rabbi and his pregnant wife. The attackers had specific instruction to target Jewish civilians for maximum global impact. We have also seen failed plot in Greece in March 2023, for example, where 2 Pakistani nationals were arrested for plotting to bomb Jewish restaurants and community centers in Athens. They had been recruited online and were allegedly financed through networks linked to Iranian and Pakistani actors. There have been an arrest in Canada in 2024 where a Pakistani origin man was arrested in Toronto for planning a mass shooting at a Jewish community center in Brooklyn. He intended to execute the attack on the anniversary of the October 7 Hamas-Israel war, showcasing how online radicalization can lead to real world violence. And this is where I want to draw attention that Pakistan has a diaspora population of 9 million worldwide. So, and most of them have gone through the same education system, consumed the same media, and most importantly, been a part of the same society which has propagated anti Semitism for decades. I'm not saying every diaspora member of Pakistani origin is anti Semitic, but the chances of them going through the same education, media, and society is far more. And having seen the examples of how some of the diaspora members have plans to attack have plans to attack Jewish either people or places, it brings closer introspection of how the diaspora groups, especially linked to Islamic League's organization, student networks, need to be monitored. Now, today there are no functional synagogues in Pakistan. Most Jews live in deep secrecy, often hiding their identity to avoid discrimination, surveillance, or worse. The situation is dire, but not hopeless, if we talk about. Some of the policy recommendations that I give are as follows: the educational reforms, revise textbook under international supervision, introduce mandatory course on interfaith harmony and Holocaust education. There should be counter radicalization programs to work with diaspora organizations to promote tolerance among the diaspora community members abroad. Uh, there should be social media platforms to moderate Urdu content using AI or human teams to make sure anti Semitic content in Pakistan is kept in check. There can also be diplomatic pressure, including international coalition, demanding transparency from Pakistan on anti Semitism. I have to end the conversation by sharing a story. What happened after November 7, 2024, following a Europa match between the Amsterdam and the Maccabi Tel Aviv? Jewish and Israeli fans were specifically targeted by mobs outside the stadium. Several were hospitalized. Such events are no longer anomalies. We have seen how, in the recent month, two Israeli staff members of the embassy were shot. This is a part of a transnational ecosystem of hate that connects with online anti Semitism, on textbooks, sermons, and calling for globalizing the Intifada. The words when we say never again are just not a post Holocaust slogans. They are a call to vigilance against the rising global anti Semitism, especially when seeds are being sown in states like Pakistan. That's all that I have to say. Thank you so much for listening again, and I am open to any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ratnadeep, for that insightful and deeply researched presentation. Now, let's take a look at some of the audience questions. We have received a number of them, and I'll begin by selecting a few for you to address. So, the first question is: you are not Jewish and you're Indian. What made you research and write a report on anti Semitism in Pakistan and its diaspora communities?
My journey into researching anti Semitism in Pakistan wasn't just an academic one, it was mostly personal. My research interest was mostly into national security and regional geopolitics of Israel to begin with. But what truly changed for me was what happened after October 7. October 7 wasn't just an abstract thing for me, it wasn't something which I've heard on television, and this weren't just names on the news, but there were places that I know, the streets that I've walked, I've spoken to people, and it was deeply personal for me, it was deeply painful. But what followed after October 7 was equally chilling: a global wave of anti Semitism. I saw Jewish friends suddenly being harassed, threatened, criminalized just for being Jewish. The world's empathy shifted within the next 24 hours. It went from mourning to blaming Israel, from grieving Israelis to justifying Hamas. And it hit me that if it was happening in the West, what was brewing in regions like South Asia that have institutionalized hatred for decades, especially in countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh. Now, Pakistan is a country that I've studied closely. It has long harbored deep rooted anti Semitic ideologies, and yet very few research has been done on that. I felt, knowing the language, living in that region of South Asia, it was somewhat my moral responsibility to talk and write about this.
The second question is, from your perspective, what should Israel be doing diplomatically or otherwise to address the challenges posed by Pakistan's stance?
I've covered a little bit about the challenges that have been posed to Pakistani stance and how Israel can address it. Let me try to expand that a little bit. Number one, to engage indirectly through regional and multilateral diplomacy. Despite the formal ties, Israel can engage Pakistan indirectly through Abraham Accord partners like UAE, Bahrain, regional allies like India, and Western backers like US, UK, and the EU. These partners can quietly raise concern about Pakistan's anti Semitism in forums like the UN, the OIC, and the UNESCO, especially when it impacts peace, education, or diaspora radicalization. The second thing that can happen is expose and document institutional anti Semitism through campaign like to translate, archive, and publicize anti-Semitic content from Pakistani textbook, political speeches, and the media, especially conspiracy theories like Operation Goldsmith. These materials should be used in reports submitted to the UN agencies, Holocaust education bodies, and international media outlets to pressurize Pakistan through global awareness and reputation cost. The other thing which I strongly feel is the counter radicalization and education in Pakistani diaspora members. With over 9 million Pakistanis living abroad, Israel should work with NGOs and allied governments to engage reformist voices, promote counter narratives, and engage interfaith dialogue. Remember that Israelis might not visit Pakistan or Pakistanis might not necessarily visit Israel, but with 9 million diaspora population living in areas like the US, mostly, let's say, North America and Europe, where a lot of Jews live as well, it does pose a threat to Jewish safety if the diaspora members of the Pakistan communities are not either de radicalized or given a proper education about countering anti Semitism.
The next question is, did you find a difference in how anti-Semitism shows up inside Pakistan compared to Pakistani communities abroad?
Yes, but the ideology is often the same. What changes is the expression. Inside Pakistan, anti Semitism is open and often state sponsored. There are sermons on national TV about Jews being cursed and anti Semitic slurs used casually in school and politics. In the diaspora communities, especially in the UK, Canada, and parts of Europe, the ideology sometimes become more coded, but just as dangerous. At pro-Palestine rallies in cities like Toronto or London, we have seen signs with anti-Semitic slogans, Holocaust denial, and the glorification of Hamas. I've given an example in the presentation as well of how in 2023 March, two Pakistani nationals were arrested in Greece for plotting attacks on Jewish targets, showing how important this hate turns into transnational terror. Diaspora members often carry with them the same biases learned through Pakistani schools, mosque, media. The hate travels and sometimes it escalates.
The fourth question is, Pakistan once had a small but visible Jewish community. What happened to them, and how is their absence part of today's anti-Semitism?
At independence in 1947, Pakistan had around between 25 to 3,000 Jews, mostly living in Karachi. One of the most notable figures were Dr. Abram Rubin, who even served as a member of Karachi Municipal Corporation in 1930s and 40s before the independence. But after 1947 and in 1948, with the creation of Israel, anti Semitic violence escalated. The Magen Shalom synagogue in Karachi was vandalized, uh, and the Jews remaining in Karachi had to flee. And by 1980, most of the Jews have fled. Today, fewer than 200 Jews are estimated to remain. Most live quietly or conceal their identity. This absence has created some sort of a vacuum, not of memory but of accountability, I would say. With no Jewish voices to counter the narratives, anti-Semitism thrives unchecked.
The last question for you is, your report looks at anti-Semitism in a country with hardly any Jews. Can your findings be used to address other countries with no Jews but strong anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. I would say that my findings could be used to study other countries where there are no Jews but strong anti Semitism. Let's say countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, parts of the Arab world uh, still have deeply anti Semitic cultures but have no Jews or less Jews. The hate is born from experience or contact with Jews, but it's inherited through education, propaganda, and ideology or cultural dissemination. Studying Pakistan helps us to understand how anti-Semitism becomes a tool of identity formation, a way to define who belongs and who doesn't. It's not about Jews; it's about power, control, and scapegoating. And it shows how anti-Semitism can become a global export, even in places where Jews don't live.
Thank you so much, Ratnadeep, for sharing your expertise and for the important work you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for organizing this conference. It was a pleasure talking to you and presenting my findings. I also loved all the questions that the audience member posed. Thank you so much.
And thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us today, asking thoughtful questions, and engaging with us on this vital issue. We hope to see you again at future programs. Take care and goodbye for now. Thank you.